Hey, what's up, good people? Thank you so much for tuning in to Cosmic Crystal Tarot. Just want to, welcome you to my channel and talk to you about just myself as an intuit, my journey as an intuitive person. Um, my intuition is something that has been with me my entire life, it seems. My earliest example is something that actually I don't recall, but my mother recalls. Apparently, the story goes like when I was like maybe 4 years old or 3 years old or somewhere in there, I was in the car with my father. We were headed out, to the store or something. And, we get in the car and I tell him, I say, Daddy, go back home because somebody's breaking into the house. And he kind of brushed it off. And then I said, no, you have to go now because they're going into the window now. And so, for whatever reason, he listened to me. And as we arrived in our home, somebody was going into our window. And so it's funny because I think in that moment for my father, it really kind of freaked him out. And then for my mother, she took note of it. And as I grew, she allowed me to move through my life, as a child and a teenager, if you can imagine, um, quite intuitively, which led me into all sorts of scenarios that allowed for my growth and allowed for me to gain insight into my spiritual practices. So I'm blessed to have grown up with a mother who, when I gave her any intuitive inkling, she followed it. Now, I didn't know at the time, but now, of course, in hindsight, I realize what that did was it allowed me to hone my intuition. And, of course, at that age, I didn't even know what intuition was. And around the age of 8, I began to write poetry. And when I started writing my poetry, all my poetry would be all about, the Egyptian Nile and trees that spoke to you. And once again, I hadn't necessarily read about these things, but they were within me, and my writing allowed for them to come out. And so my mother once again noticed, and she allowed me to kind of always express myself creatively, which, once again, my mother, a great blessing, and truly a woman who, when I think about my journey, was absolutely someone that I chose to be my mother because she has always supported my spiritual journeys, even when she didn't understand it. And it's so funny when you fast forward to today, I'm helping my mother build her intuition after all these years. It's so interesting. And so then, so that's my intuition and my writing, because I do show up in the world as someone who writes. And so at a young age, I was in tune with that. Then when I was 10 years old, my father took us on a trip to Disney World. I'm based in California, so Disney World was quite a, an amazing trip to be proposed to go when you're 10. Of course you want to go to Disney World. So we go to Disney World, and, Disney World as a whole, like, it's a big thing. It takes days to go through Disney World. I think we were there for 3 to 5 days. And after a couple of days, I remember as a kid, Disney World was cool. It was cool for me. But our hotel was next to this crystal store. And this crystal store, I'll never forget, outside they had this little fool's gold sort of like, it was like this water with little pyrite in it, like fool's gold. And every time we get in the car to go to Disney World and we pass by the crystal shop, I'd be like, what is in there? Like, what is that, right? So one day within that vacation, I told my father, I said, can we go look in this crystal shop? He's like, sure. We go look in the crystal shop. And I just remember being way more intrigued than I was when I was at Disney World and not wanting to leave and picking up everything and feeling really good when I was in there. It's like whatever the feeling Disney World was supposed to be selling me, the crystal store gave it to me. And that's a feeling that always stayed with me because it was like, here was something that was presented to me in a worldly space as Disney World. This is the happiest place on earth. Like, that's what we're told, right? However, the happiest place on earth for me was the Crystal Store. And it was very striking in my 10-year-old self how I was at the happiest place on earth, but is when I left that place, that branded happy place, and I found my own happy place, which was the Crystal Shop. And so I went and mesmerized by the crystals. And my father wondering, what souvenir did I want from Disney World? Well, I saw a purple amethyst, like a geode cluster similar to this, but a little bit larger. Purple, was my favorite color as a kid, and it's my favorite color again now. I went many years with other favorite colors. When I came back to purple, I knew that I was back on track. We'll make another video about that, colors association and stuff. But, I saw this amethyst, and not this exact one, but something just like it, but larger. And I was like, I must have this. So I say to my father, I really want this rock. Can this be my souvenir? He says, you sure you don't want anything from Disney World? So I made a compromise. I was like, okay, Dad, I'll get these Minnie Mouse ear hat, like with my name embroidered on it. But can I get this crystal? And so I got the crystal. And I cherish the crystal so much more than the Mickey Mouse hat. Like, I just didn't care about that stuff. And it's funny because I still don't care about those things to this day. And it's so interesting to me how when we're young, there's a great honesty of our personality that can't help but shine through. And as we get older, we sometimes look and notice, oh, is this aspect of my personality is not in line, and we tuck it. And then, oh, this aspect of my personality is not in line, and we tuck it, right? And then that's how we lose ourselves. So even at that age, I was faced with tucking myself. But me being myself, I'm not a tucker. I don't tuck. And the way I live my life now, I for sure don't tuck. And whatever the consequence is, I don't care, because I'm not tucking. Because tucking to me is like a suffocation of the self. Suffocation leads to what? Okay, so I'm never tucking. I'm always going to let people know, and I'm happy that I let my father know that I was not really interested in the Mickey Mouse ears, and I wanted the crystal. I wanted the real magic, and I knew that at 10, and I know that now at 35 years old. And I'm here for the real earth, the great vibrational magic that this earth comes with, that this earth is, And so for me, crystals over Mickey Mouse all day. Okay? There's this thing though about this tucking. I want to talk about tucking ourselves. Like, what if I had done the opposite? What if I had kept to myself that I wanted to go to the crystal shop, but I had never said it out loud? And I just did what made my father happy, which is get a souvenir from Disney World. What would have come of me with that? Well, I wouldn't have had that story to tell you about the crystal. I might have never even gotten to know my love for crystals. However, I chose not to tuck at that age of 10. And I'm somebody who will always encourage you to not tuck. It's let it out, opposite of tuck. Because the thing that you are letting out, that question, that wondering, that movement, that walking into that store, that asking that particular question is going to lead to personal unfolding. Personal unfolding is what we want as opposed to tucking. We want to unfold ourselves. We don't want to tuck ourselves. When we tuck ourselves, that's when we end up with dis-ease. Okay? Which brings me to like the next part of this story within me. So I was 10 and I was attracted to the amethyst crystal. And that's why you'll see like my logo is an amethyst. I recognize amethyst almost as my ground zero stone because it was the first stone that resonated me with at the age of 10. And it's interesting because as life unfolded and as life would have had it, that was the only trip that my father ever took me on. And my father's alive and well, and my father loves to travel, but he made particular choices in his life where he kind of chose to leave the family behind and do other things. And the amethyst became this symbol to me of that time that we had together that was so special to me. So as a kid, when I was kind of going through that, and many of us are familiar with the trauma that a teenage girl or a young girl experiences when her father is not in the home. Okay, for me, I just, I would hold my crystal and I would just cry. I would cry because it was something that allowed me to remember this joyous time when my father cared for me. And when that energy was no longer in my life, holding the amethyst and feeling the love of that particular time, I was able to reinsert that energy back into my life to where I was able to transmute a lot of the anger that I had toward my father at that early age. I mean, it was overwhelming. So there was still stuff, there was lots of daddy issues and all the things that teenage girls do when they are lacking a man in their life. I was not exempt from any of that. And I experienced all those things. But for me, when things got really hectic, I would sit with this crystal. And nobody told me to sit with it. It just was very natural to me. I would sit with it. It was, I would kind of play with the points, and it would end up becoming very meditational. I didn't know what meditation was, at that time. But I was centering myself, and I didn't even realize it. And that's what I love about crystals. And that's why I'm a believer in crystals, because crystals, they're earth energy that is solidified, that can come to you and awaken in you healing energies. Okay, all the things that are in this crystal are within us. So there is a frequency connection that's happening that is ancient, that allows for crystals to heal us on a very finite, vibrational, and subtle level. And that was something I began to experience when I was 12. And then I remember with that crystal, when I would go visit my father, I would bring it with me. And then one time I went to visit him, and I decided I was never going to visit him again, and I left my crystal there. And I never saw my crystal again. If I want to fast forward it to 25 years later, having a conversation with my father, comes to find out that he still has my crystal. And not only does he have my crystal, but he keeps my crystal in his library, which to me is everything. Because what that's saying is that energy that I was putting into that crystal when I was missing him, he now has that. And the way I feel about that is there's a transmutation that had that. I've come to the realization that, I'll never have the relationship with him that I want, that sort of TV version of a dad. I don't know if anybody has that, but, I would always be like, oh, I want advice, and I want those things. And my father, unfortunately, had made the decision not to do that. But luckily, for the way I feel, the fact that he has my amethyst, he has my original amethyst in his library, literally today as we speak. So when I'm tapping into crystal energy, when I want to tap into my father's energy, especially, because he's gone through various stages of dis-ease because he had made a decision in his life to tuck himself. Okay. But see, now that I know my father has my original amethyst, I send my father loving, healing energy, cellular level healing. I send it to him, and I know that it's transmuting, it's getting to him because he has my original stone. And that stone and I have such a relationship that stone has stayed in my life even when I thought it wasn't in my life. That stone was with the person I thought who left me. So it's so interesting how the crystal became this extension cord between my father and I, even throughout all of our years of not speaking. And I mean, now we're fine because I'm just to the stage where I just appreciate him for being him, and I love him, and there are things about me that I love that are just like him. So I couldn't hold on to that angst about him. And we'll talk about healing daddy issues, throughout on the channel as well. So for me, that is how crystals have kind of shown up in my life, or how they showed up in my life in my earliest days. For me, crystals give great healing. What I have in my hand right now, classic rose quartz, stone of self-love. And for me, once again, crystal energy has always helped to balance me and bring me back to self-love. You know, when times when I felt like maybe, uh, where's the self-love? I can't find it. Give me the rose quartz. Okay. Reminder to love myself. Reminder to be kind to myself. Reminder to honor myself. Reminder to not be afraid. Reminder to not tuck. Reminder to live out loud for me. All those things, you know, pertain to self-love. So those are my foundational experiences with crystals and my intuition. By the time I was 12, I was full in. By the time I was 12, you know, I was like making vision boards and imagining like, you know, the life I could create, because I just felt like, how amazing is life? I felt like life was magical. And so I started making these vision boards, right? And it's funny because fast forward, of course, I made the vision boards when I was a kid. And, you know, I eventually went away to college. I didn't look at those things. And the way I used to do my vision board, this is before they were like a thing. Like I used to take like a little folder, like a 1-inch folder with lined paper in it, right? And I would go through magazines and like anything that pertained to something that I wanted to do or look like fashion, I just put it in there. And then it was like a book. So it was more like a vision book, okay? And for me, it was fun. It was like, oh, this is the story of my future, right? And I remember certain images. Like there was a woman at that time, at Essence magazine, they would just have the best fashion spreads, especially for like the holiday times. And I remember there was this very beautiful sequined dress that a woman was wearing, and she was wearing them with Chucks, okay? Now, I love Chucks, but as a kid, I was not allowed to wear Chucks because I'm from Los Angeles. I grew up in Los Angeles in the 90s. Particular shoes were affiliated with gang, and you just couldn't. Like, if you wanted to keep your life, you couldn't wear those shoes. So there was always this thing about Chucks. I couldn't wear Chucks, but I wanted to wear Chucks. And on top of that, I wanted red Chucks. And I'm from Inglewood, so I never had red Chucks. To just, you know, to be straight up with that. But in my heart, I always wanted Chucks. So in this picture, this woman's wearing this really fancy gown and some Chucks. I was like, oh my God, like, that's just the coolest fashion ever. That's what I want to wear, you know. And I remember I put it in there, you know. And then there's like a woman and she's writing in her journal. And I'm like, oh, that's going to be me. And then there's a woman, she's at a microphone. I was like, oh, that's going to be me too, right? Now, I was very shy as a kid. So it was funny when I put the one of the microphone on. I remember pacing on and thinking like, I'm never going to actually do that though. Like, I'm not. I would never ever do anything that would cause any attention or cause anybody to actually look at me. You know, I took that as my, that was my mantra. I am invisible. For many years, I truly wanted to just fall into the background. But as life would keep having it, life kept bringing me forward. So I said, let me stop resisting and just do as the universe is calling me to do. So, you know, I made that book or whatever. And it was also like a couple, you know, guy and girl, like love. I was like, oh, I want all these things, right? Made it, forgot about it. Years go by. Now, at this point, like, we're talking about 20 years of vision board. And my mother, thank God for my mother. I love this woman. She doesn't throw away anything. I mean, you know, trash, yeah. But, like, in terms of, like, if I give my mother this, then I know in 30 years, she's going to have this. Okay? This is a Lemurian quartz, by the way. Really great quartz to use if you want to tap into your Akashic records. Read up on the story of Lemuria and their quartz. It's coated with very special energy. And the Lemurian quartz is here because it has assisted me greatly in my spiritual journey. Those of you that want to dig deeper into the story of yourself, get you a Lemurian quartz. It's totally worth it. So, okay, back to this vision board that I made, though. So now we're going to cut in with life. So I made the vision board. I was a kid. Blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to me being maybe 17 years old. I go to college. I go 3,000 miles away. I go to the East Coast. And, you know, I'm out there. And as I'm in the East Coast, well, here's the thing. There was one school I wanted to go to, and this is pre-internet, so I had the brochure for the school. Now, in high school, I didn't have the best GPA or the best SAT score, but I could see myself at this one school. I was like, this is the school for me. I could feel it. I could see myself. They had this little cafe in the brochure. I could see myself in the cafe. So I would look at the brochure and I would be like, that's my school. That's my school. So senior year, I'm applying to schools. Time to get acceptances. Now, I know I only want to go to this one school. But you know what they say. Don't put your eggs in one basket. True, when you apply to schools, you end up where you're supposed to be. So spread it out, right? So I get all the rejection letters that I was expecting to get. And then I got the acceptance from the one school that I wanted to go to. And the crazy part about it is a couple of my friends that I went to school with who had higher GPAs than me, they didn't get in. Now I remember when I got that acceptance, I looked at all the worldly factors, my GPA, my SAT score, my work ethic, that of a LAUSD public school educated, 90s kid. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, if I got in, I'm supposed to be here. Because how does this happen? How did I land into this place where statistically, if you look at it, I'm not supposed to be here? Okay. Well, I got there. I went there. Best experience of my life. Totally found people who I was connected with. Could totally see how it was the only school that I should have been accepted to, And till this day, the blessings from that decision unfold in my life. And so that just for me was once again speaking to following that feeling. It's like that when you're looking at that image and you feel in your gut you're supposed to be there. There's something in there that's pulling you toward it that's not, what other people will think of me or, oh, this will make me look this way. No, things that speak to your soul will manifest that way. If it speaks to your soul, and your soul can speak back to it. You all have that communication. At the end of that communication is the manifestation. Okay? But you have to stay open and don't tuck yourself. Okay? Don't tuck yourself. All right? So I ended up going to that university. Many, many, many great things unfolded. And my spiritual quest continued. It was absolutely amazing. One of the things that I started to do when I was in college that I forgot that, I hadn't thought about was I started wearing Chucks because now I was in a different place and now I could wear Chucks and not fear for my life. And that was really nice. So I started wearing Chucks and I used to love to wear Chucks with dresses. And of course I forgot that I had put this in a picture book when I was, a kid, 10 or 12 or something like that, young age. So, after graduation, when I graduated college, I graduated into a recession, so there were no jobs. And so because there were no jobs, it's funny because it was such a blessing to me because I ended up with what I like to call a cosmic job. I was looking for an office job and there just was never happening. But I ended up, that writing that I had been doing, I ended up living in a home full of musicians and they knew that I could, get on the mic and do a little something, but I wasn't trying to actually perform on the mic, say my poetry on the mic, definitely not rap on the mic. That was definitely not the goal, especially since I had just graduated college. I felt like my future was bright. So I don't know why anybody's up in here trying to get me on stage or doing anything like that. Well, in the midst of me not ever finding that office job, the one that I never found, by the way, which I love that because I was never supposed to have it. And I probably would have been miserable if I did. And I'm happy that I avoided that lesson. So I started recording. I started recording music. My friends knew that I rapped, but I wasn't trying to rap because who would do that? Why would you sign up for that, especially as a woman, right? Well, I gave it a shot because it was there. I was bored. I was a kid, just graduated college. And then that went on to become 10 years of me as a performing and a recording artist. And that journey in being an artist was almost like spiritual boot camp to me, because it is was really in that space. And that for me was a 10-year cycle, 10 to 11 years, but it was a strong 10-year cycle of me really releasing so many of the bondages I that I picked up from living, as a young person in the world. There was so much transformation that came to me during my time as a performer and a recording artist. There was so much freedom that came from me expressing myself. There was so much joy that people felt through me expressing myself through music that I had never planned on sharing with people. Once again, I was trying to keep it to myself. And that's a theme in my life, because even now, these videos that I'm doing, I do readings for my friends all the time. I've been doing readings for friends for years, and everybody would say, "Oh, you should do more." I'd be like, "No, I'm good. I'll do these couple." But how the universe shows up in my life when it's divine, they push and push and push, and they make it so I ain't got no other choice. So it's so interesting how when I started to when I when I was like, oh, I spent like a good 6 months like, I think I should do a channel. Maybe I should do a channel. But then things kept happening. And the divine was obviously like, you have to do your channel. And I was like, okay, I have to listen. Because at this point, I'm primed to listen. I've been listening to spirit at least since I was like 4 years old, somewhere in the youthful range. And so it's almost like my default now. And when I don't do it, it jacks me up immediately. Energetically, it's like somebody threw a brick in a pond and just created chaos. So I take the time to reflect on the ways my intuition has allowed me to build an amazing life. And so for me, here I was now, maybe 23 years old, 24 years old, in the music world. I wasn't trying to even be in the music world, and I definitely didn't have the look as a woman or the sound of anybody who would be anywhere near a pop star. And especially since the time in which I was putting out music, there were no women putting out music in rap. And then Nicki Minaj came out. You know what I mean? So, but there was a space where there was just no women, and that's probably like around the those mid 2000s. And so I remember talking to a producer, and they're like, "You got to do this for the women." And I was like, "You know what? I will." And what I realized is, like, my time as a hip hop artist, I almost instantly saw that it was light work. The titles of my albums and music were always spiritual. The lyrics to my music was always spiritual. I was not a spiritual person who tucked my spirituality when I made rap. I was a spiritual person who made spiritual rap, and then would have very spiritual responses from my supporters and my audience, which was really interesting. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is a great way to spread my energy. I can spread my joyous energy. I can spread my optimistic energy, and it can go to people who want it. It can flow to the people who need it. Because I had been giving my joyful and optimistic energy to people who hated joy and optimism. And what that was doing is it was making me hate my joy and optimism. But then when I took away my joy and optimism, I was miserable. I came to the point, I said, that's just my spirit. I have a joyous spirit. I have an optimistic spirit. No, I don't deal with bullshit. Of course I don't take bullshit. But I'm a joyous person who doesn't take bullshit. You don't have to be mean to not take bullshit. You can say no to bullshit with a smile, okay? So, I remember having this conflict and deciding, no, I'm going to stay true. Once again, to tuck or not tuck. I decided to not tuck. And the experiences that I had as a woman in rap and as a musician was absolutely amazing. Amazing. I met a producer who became my great love, my DJ. We were married. We did great work together. And then one day, not one day, but we realized that the work we had done to do together was done. And we decided to split. And we divorced. And our divorce was very amicable. And our love was strong. And we loved each other enough to recognize that energetically, where we were once in accord, we were now clashing. And we saw how the clash, we had to go like this. And it's been smooth sailing in my life ever since. And of course, I'm going to go into that with y'all too. Because the reason that I'm doing these videos is that what I'm learning is that where I've kind of always been the only me, I'm learning there's a whole bunch of me's out there, and they're y'all. Hi, guys. And you guys are maybe like not on my blog, but you're on the internet. And so am I. And so we're connecting this way. We're connecting through the internet. The internet is our tool. And I do believe that many light workers came back during this time because the internet is a great tool to connect us. Okay? Um, so for me, I'm really excited to just be here sharing my insight and my experiences. I am going to be getting really personal on this channel. I went through I'm in or have gone, that we can say that those of us have been in the twin flame journey. I'm about a year and a half into my twin flame journey, and I'm going to give you guys information about that. Now, I want to actually detail those experiences because what I would have loved to have had while I was looking at the tarot readings on twin flames, while I was in the midst of it and didn't even know what it was, I would have loved to have heard somebody speak about specifics of their experience, just to line it up, because I know what I went through and how crazy it was. And then it's a weird thing though, because if you mention twin flame to somebody, if you mention it to somebody, they instantly start to look for their life. And who's my twin flame? No, it don't work like that. It's a soul ripping experience. But once the soul is ripped, what emerges is what we're here for. And like for me, I can say that my situation with my twin flame ripped me open to the point where I could no longer hide the fact that I was a light worker. I could no longer hide the fact that I was an empath. I had to own it, and I had to put it out. And what was happening with me was that journey was filling me with love in a space when I had been numb for many years. Filling me with love. And I was being filled with love by a person who didn't really have love for me. And so I decided to not direct it toward that person, but to transmute it out. Transmute it out. Because the world needs love. I don't have to send it to a direct person. I'm sending it out to the whole world. That which I was giving to one, I'm sending all that love out to the whole world. And this is another way that I'm doing it. Because I got filled. That journey filled me with love. It cracked my heart open and filled me with love. And we're going to talk about it. Because I want to connect with the feminines and masculines, because I want us to be whole and healthy and stable during these journeys, because you will hear me say this. These journeys, they're not about your twin, and they're not about union. The union is there. You're on the planet together. That's the union. You breathe in the same air. That's union. We have to release these ideas of relationships that we have been taught, because they kind of, I don't know how accurate they are anymore. But I'm getting off topic. I'm here to talk to you guys about just intuitive. I want to bring it back because I'm going to do separate videos for all that. But that's kind of where I'm going to end in terms of my intuitive journey. Here, I would like to assist anybody who needs help in developing their intuition. Because we all have an intuition. Anybody who says they don't have an intuition, you just tucked. You tucked it. And we're going to untuck you here. So, if you have any questions, you could always email me. I'm not, I'm just trying all this out. It's like, this is me bending to spirit, not really knowing what to expect. But this is how I've always run my life at this point. So I'm curious, just to see what happens with this. How much do I grow intuitively? Can I help people in the way that other readers have helped me to stay sane and to level up and to raise my vibration? Because really, once again, that's what we want. When we're studying our spirituality, when we go within, when we go into hermit mode, when our lives, after we've had a tower moment, it's that transition, that leveling up, that raising of the vibration that we really want. So I'm here for it. Are you here for it? I'm here for y'all. So that's my message for today. I mean, that's what I wanted to tell you guys, just in terms of I don't know. I feel like it's important to know sometimes when you're getting a reading, who is this person? For now, I'm just going to keep it with my hands and my crystals because I want to get a little more personal on this channel. I really don't want to make it about my face, I really wanted to make it about the spirit and the story Just to because I know when I was in the midst of my twin flame journey and deep in the karma of it, oh, the karma of that journey, God. I mean, it's crazy how karma will literally take over your mind and your eyes. Karma takes you over. Karma is amazing. Because then when you get out of it, you look back, you're like, what? So, more on that in another video. But anyway, this is Cosmic Crystal Tarot. Sending y'all love. Encouraging you to not tuck yourself. Encouraging you to follow your intuition. Encouraging, if you want the crystal and you don't want the Mickey Mouse ears, that's okay. Because guess what? Mickey Mouse ears are bullshit.